All right. So if you thought that the fun had stopped, we have a lot more fun coming up, CGB. And so the next card I'm going to soft pitch to you, Tanazia Quandricks.
All right. Tanazia Quandricks is 3 and a green and a blue, a legendary elder dragon with text, lots of it. It's a 4/4 with flying and trample. And when this card enters the battlefield, double the number of +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. And whenever this creature attacks, you may have the base power and toughness of other creatures you control become equal to this creature's power and toughness until end of turn. Why? Double the number of +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. So it doesn't come in with a counter, so you can't double its own power. You have to double something else. So why would you want? I guess because they're +1/+1 counters, making them a base 4/4 makes them even bigger.
I suppose makes your Nissa lands massive.
This is the Elder Dragon of Math, right?
It is.
I hate it. I hate it already. I don't want to do math.
It's the Elder Dragon of Board States. Yeah, I mean, this card seems memey. Like, okay, it's not hard to concoct scenarios in which this card is good. One of the things I don't like about it is that Tanazia has to attack to get the buff. I think if you just got the buff as soon as you played Tanazia, it would be a lot better, right?
Yes.
Because then you could like play it on, slam it, have a good attack, and that would probably be sweet.
Yeah, you could play your Stonecoil Serpent and you play Kasmina, plus it one turn, minus it the next turn, and then you play this and you'd have ultra mega creatures to attack with. Instead, you play this and you double up one creature, but that creature has to make it to the next turn, and the dragon has to make it to the next turn, and I mean, it's a lot of text. It doesn't feel like exciting text.
Yep. What is that? Song and thunder signifying nothing. I don't quite remember that quote, but yep. So anyway, we probably won't play Tanazia.
Oh no, dude, we have to abandon this podcast. I have my empty dinner plate is in the background. Hold on, guys. Hold on. Unprofessional. We know how I feel about eating. We know how I feel about eating and food while streaming. All right.
We cannot perpetuate the notion that Covert Go Blue eats mortal food.
That is true. I mean, I guess you didn't see the food. It's an empty plate.
It could have been anything.
Yeah, the tears of my enemies.
Exactly. Okay, moving on. This is a card I'm interested to get your take on. So, multiple choice. X and a blue sorcery at rare. If X is 1, scry 1, then draw a card. If X is 2, you may choose a player. They return a creature they control to its owner's hand. If X is 3, create a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. And if X is 4 or more, do all of the above. So my hot take on this card was that it wasn't very good. After reading it a little bit more, I'm warming to some of the possibilities, but yeah, I don't know what. Like, I'm sure you've thought about this card. What's going through your head?
It's a sorcery. That's going through my head a lot. Like, as an instant, I'd be like really into it because you could just hold it open, and every turn, depending on what your opponent did, you could make a decision on if now is the time to use this, or if you try to hold out for max value and land drops, etc. And at sorcery speed, you have to commit that with less information on your turn. And that, I don't like that. That's not very blue mage to me. Gosh, I think this was instant away from being playable. Now, as it is a value machine. 5 mana for a 4/4 that bounces a thing, scries 1, and draws a card is probably playable. But I get this weird feeling that it looks better than it is because it's next to the other 5 mana cards, the last few that we talked about. Because it appears like a creature that actually has an ETB, right? But it's not actually a creature, it's a spell. And when it's actually a creature, there's so much more you can do with it. When it's a spell, especially an X spell, like you can't like bounce it, you can't
cheat it into play.
Yeah, cheat it into play. There's a bunch of spells. There's a bunch of cards that care about casting instants and sorceries out of the graveyard or exiling them from the graveyard. And this isn't a big one because of that X.
Here's another thing that sucks about it is that you don't get any payoff if X is greater than 4, right?
That's true. You don't.
So you can't, like, one of the nice things about X spells is if you top deck them in the late game, you can just slam them for some ungodly amount and really use your mana. And this one tops out at 5 CMC. So, yeah, and here's the other thing, right? The way I read this card, if you cast it for anything less than CMC 5, or sorry, MV5 is what I'm moving into. It's a desperation play, right? Like, I read it like you're basically not happy to cast this card at any point before that. You're probably just trying to stay alive.
Oh, yeah. And sorcery speed bouncing is so much worse than instant speed.
And this particular bounce is just so much worse in general, man. Couldn't they have given us a reasonable bounce as well?
Yeah.
Like, they get to choose, you know?
Choose a player, they return a creature they control. Yeah, it's true. It's their choice.
That's actually one of the things that kind of kills me about the card, you know? Like, you're getting beaten down by, like, mono white or mono red. They return their 1-drop to their hand. How much did you really accomplish?
The doggo takes another one for the team. but, Arjuna, you can bounce a hexproof Hero Best the Sea God token.
Okay, and now you're talking. We really did it.
If they have nothing else on the battlefield.
If we're super big brain, we can target ourselves and then bounce something that we control. Oh, baby.
You know what I've always hated? Multiple choice.
Yeah.
It's like training wheels for the kids, you know? It's like, let them suffer. Let those of us who can figure it out without multiple choice, you know, rise to the top.
Yeah. So, yeah. We, the Chads over here, will be playing cards like the next card, which I'll have you read, CGB Extus Auric Overlord.
Will we? Okay, cool. I'm putting you,
I don't know. We'll find out.
1 white, black, 4 total. 2/4 double strike, legendary creature, human warlock. Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, return target non-legendary creature card from your graveyard to your hand. That's one side. The other side. Awaken the Blood Avatar. 6 black, red. That's a total of 8. Sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you may sacrifice any number of creatures, even infinity. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each creature sacrificed this way. Each opponent sacrifices a creature. Create a 3/6 black and red avatar creature token with haste. And whenever this creature attacks, it deals 3 damage to each opponent. What do you think?
That's another book on a card. You know, my very first thought in looking at this card is, isn't it a bummer that the sorcery is on the back? Because this can't be one of our cards that we're pitching into the graveyard for our spells thing, right?
Oh, to cheat, and then you wouldn't have to sacrifice the things. Yeah.
That would make this card a lot better, I think.
Yeah.
So, okay, but then, all right. So let's look at the card. So on the face of it, we have another random, like, low power, high toughness, double striking 4-drop, which just seems to be kind of the theme in the set.
Yep. With the Magecraft.
Like rare and mythic double strikers, man. I don't know what they're trying to do. They're trying to do something. The Magecraft
keyword
ability.
Soup. It does feel like they rolled a dice or like spun a wheel for their mythics, doesn't it? Of which abilities we're going to give it. Because we gave flying and trample to the Quandricks, and I guess flying makes sense for a dragon, but does a 4/4 need trample? And then over here we've got double strike on a 2-power creature.
It's just weird. It all feels a little arbitrary to me. Maybe I'm missing something. So, okay. So the Magecraft ability is strong. I mean, it's a nice ability to have on a creature. It would be a fine ability to have on a creature I wanted to have on the battlefield. So, it's not the worst, right? Like, it's not the worst. I think again, the worst part of the front side of this is just the whole like 2/4 for 4-ness of it. So I'm not hot overall on it. Like, this card has to do, like, it doesn't have an ETB. This card has to like do something pretty impressive, and I'm not quite seeing it.
It can't block a questing beast. Like, what's going on here?
I can't even block a Lovestruck Beast. I mean,
it can. It won't win.
Won't relish it.
I'm like, there's so many of these cards where you look at it and it's like, yeah, I mean, that's a card, but there's not a lot exciting to do with it. And then on the backside, like, what the heck are we do?
Yeah,
what do you have to do?
It's a weird card, man.
If you sacrifice 2 creatures and you pay 4 mana for this, and your opponent has to sack a creature of their choice, you get this 3/6 with haste that deals 3 damage directly to the dome when it attacks. That's
it's almost like a 6/6 haste, right?
But remember, we gave up 2 creatures for that, for 4 mana, right? And that's like, what creatures are we giving up? Do we have some goat tokens? Did we claim the firstborn and do this thing? Keep in mind, the backside is Rakdos, the front side is Orzhov. So the mana requirements are messed up. If you wanted to play this in Rakdos, you can't play the other side unless you conjure a white mana.
And let's be real, like, although the backside can be game ending, it's also incredibly easy to disrupt, right? Like a single bounce spell, a single fatal push. Like, there are just so many ways to kill this demon. So, and if the demon dies, the avatar is what it is. If the avatar dies, you get nothing and you sack stuff.
It's pretty bad. I mean, the opponent sacrificed a creature. I guess that's all.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. I can't even imagine playing this card.
I can't either. I think, like, you'd have to have a deck that was really all in on sacking creatures.
But you also need spells, right? If you see, it's another one of those cards with so many messed up incentives, because if you want to take advantage of the front side at all, you want spells. But you also want non-legendary creatures to take advantage of the front side. And on top of that, you have a double striking body with a low power, so you want equipment or something to buff it. And then on the backside, you just need 3 useless cards sitting around, but you also probably want removal, because you want them to sacrifice something that matters. So you have to somehow kill their other stuff. What is this deck? What? We are being pulled in directions, and I don't know what is going on. We're supposed to play Tradebinder.deck, and sometimes it will come together.
Agreed. Yeah, this is one of the weirder cards I've seen, and that is saying something for this set. All right, well, let's just move on from that morass of a card. This next card I'm going to read is one of the cards which is helping us to answer the question of what are we willing to do to learn. So I'll read this one off. Igneous Inspiration, 2 and a red, sorcery at uncommon. Igneous Inspiration deals 3 damage to any target. So we finally found a card that can go to the dome. We did it. And it also has Learn on it. So I guess this poses the question. Are we willing to pay basically an extra generic mana to get Learn on a card like this?
When I read this card, I thought that it was a lesson. Like, I inverted them in my head, and I was like, oh, this is the best freaking lesson.
That would be gas.
And just because, sometimes you fetch it and go face, right? You just have the option of an expensive sorcery speed face spell. But as the Learn card, I hate it, because that's not free. Like, you still have to get a lesson that matters and cast it for this to really have replaced itself. What would you think of 3 mana sorcery, deal 3 damage to any target, draw a card? Would you like that card?
That's a really good question.
I'm not sure.
A really good question. It's okay. So that card is a grindy card, which this card is, right? So part of it depends on the speed of the format and the threats. So if your opponent is playing a lot of like, let's say, that deck is like a lot of 3 mana creatures, stuff like that. Or, 3 mana planeswalkers that this can kill, which wasn't really happening in the past. But anyway, if a format is kind of like that, then yeah, this card is great. If a format is like mono white, no, this card's way too slow. So
yeah, I think it's really slow.
One of the other bummers about this is like the mono red deck doesn't want to play this, right? Because it's just too much mana.
Compare it to Bone Crusher Giant.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, because Bone Crusher gives you a hit any target and draw a card, and it's a pretty good on-rate creature, and it curves into itself. What are we curving into if we spend 3 mana to damage a target? Like, I mean, I don't think we have a 4 mana lesson that an aggro or burn deck really want to play that way. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's true. So basically I wouldn't main deck it, and I can't think of a matchup that I would board it in for either, which basically adds up to this being just not good. All right. Well, I guess we answered that question.
I think so.
I'll mention this next card just because, I don't know, maybe. Practical Research. Why don't you read this for us?
3 blue-red instant, draw 4 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard an instant or sorcery.
So, I don't know. I mean, okay, so draw 4 is nice. This card reminds me of Graven Lore. Now, obviously, Graven Lore is a better card if you have the 5 Snowlands to cast it, right? But how much worse is this card than Graven Lore? Like, just on the face of it.
Worse than Graven Lore. I think it's getting close to being on par with it.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, I don't know. Graven Lore is... You can play that in a blue-black deck, and this... You cannot. And, like, the black removal spells make a big difference in that card being playable, because you can keep just about any threat the opponent plays from absolutely devastating you. Same with Extinction Event. And in Izzet, you have Storm's Wrath, which we don't have to talk about. Lovestruck Beast right now. We can just let it go. But, man...
like, if this card costs 3 blue, do you think it would be playable?
This card is playable.
Okay.
It is playable. I just think there are better options.
Mm-hmm. I think it's quite strong, and especially if this color combination, if we have like really good incentives to play an Izzet deck in Standard, I could definitely see this card. I mean, draw 4, pitch an instant or sorcery is powerful. Draw 4, pitch 2 lands, especially when you're already at 5 lands, is still quite powerful, I think.
Yep.
So, I don't know. Who knows whether this card shows up, right? I mean, Graven Lore was, arguably a little bit of a meme card, right? I mean, it's a good card. Didn't really see
it. It is not a meme card.
I mean, it wasn't showing up in tournament lists that I was seeing, but maybe I just wasn't reading the right lists. But at any rate.
Yeah, it was part of the Dimir control deck that did show up in a lot of side tournaments, but was kind of a strange meta choice and didn't get played by the MPL at any level.
Right, so maybe a tier 2, 2.5 kind of a card. I'm not dissing the card. I mean, I've resolved plenty of Graven Lores. I think they're good.
Calls it meme card, says is not dissing card. Let the record show.
So anyway, yeah, just, I don't know, keep an eye. We might actually see Practical Research show up.
Okay.
That'd be kind of cool. I'm going to let you decide whether we read Ruther Mercurial Artist. What do you think?
Nope.
All right, moving on. So why don't you read then for us Culmination of Studies?
Culmination of Studies, X and a blue-red. Sorcery, rare. Exile the top X of your library. For each land card exiled, create a treasure token. For each blue card exiled this way, draw a card. For each red card exiled this way, 1 damage to each opponent. Whoa. So, you're telling me, if I have 7 mana chilling, and I, at sorcery speed, tap all those for culmination of studies, and I exile 2 lands, I get like 2 treasures, and I exile an Izzet card, a blue card, and red card. I draw 2 cards, and I deal 2 damage to my opponent. That's
What a deal.
That's not an ultimatum, dude.
What a deal.
That's not an ultimatum.
But it's so flexible, CGB, right? Can't
Is
we
it?
just cast it for X equals 1?
Yeah, you
Doesn't
can.
that sound good?
Yeah, see what happens. I mean, you could make 1 treasure. That could happen. You could dome your opponent for 1. Yeah? Yeah?
Just living the life.
Oh, man.
But
I
we can
mean,
keep this card out, right? No, we can't do that either.
it's the next spell. Yeah.
What? So this is what you have to ask yourself when you have an X spell is like, at what X equals what before you're satisfied, right? And I'm struggling to find X equals any cost with this card that is satisfying to me.
If you exile 5 blue cards in that scenario I'm talking about, you draw 5 for 7. Like, that's not great. You can draw 7 for 7. That card is actually a best of 1 legal. Overwhelming intellect or whatever it is. I mean, yeah, I feel like this card is a bit of a joke. Like why would you ever play this card?
Why with an X spell are we excited to make treasure tokens? Like you want your X spells to be your payoff card, not your setup card.
So I'm glad that it does something when you hit a land, because we've seen this card a number of times that just did nothing when it hit lands.
Mm-hmm.
So at least it does something. But I'm off it.
Yeah, this card is just deeply underwhelming to me. All right. How about...
Well, Frost Trickster is there, and I don't know if you know this, but it was revealed by clearly the most excellent of mages.
I mean, very constructed playable card, Frost Trickster.
At this point, it might be among the most constructed playable cards in the set. Don't make me go there.
I would rather put Frost Trickster in my deck than Culmination of Studies, quite honestly.
Yeah. No Kappa.
All right, well, why don't you read it for the people then?
Frost Trickster is 2 and a blue for a bird wizard. It is a 2/2 flyer, and when Frost Trickster enters the battlefield, tap target creature an opponent controls. That creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. The power creep is real. This is the finest Frost Links ever printed.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it rumbles. It is a Yorian combo.
Dude, this is a banger in limited, man. Like, oh boy, and at common, like this card's gonna pull me into blue, man.
Yeah, Thassa is still legal if you wanna, you want to try that.
Go for it. There you go. You even get a little value if it gets bone crushed.
Yep. I wish I had flash, but oh well.
Well, CGB, at least they identified the correct color of cards to give you. So, that they're doing something right.
Dude, I am not joking. This is a better card than a lot of the mythics and rares.
No, it is. It honestly is. Okay. So I want to read this cycle of cards because at least one of them I think is playable. So Maelstrom Muse, and these have interesting casting costs as well. It kind of looks funny if you read it, but it's basically 1 blue, red, and an Izzet. So the casting cost can be 1 blue, blue, red, or 1 blue, red, red. This one's, Maelstrom Muse. It's a creature Djinn wizard at uncommon. It is a 2/4 with flying. Whenever Maelstrom Muse attacks, the next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn costs X less to cast, where X is Maelstrom Muse's power as this ability resolves. Probably not playable, I would say.
The first thing I was gonna do is ask you if this is the playable one, and then I was gonna roast you for why do we have to read the whole cycle if only one's playable.
All right, this one's not playable. We'll move on.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I just thought that was funny. I just wanted to roast you for the funzos.
That's cool. Roast deserved. Roast accepted. But why don't you read Teachings of the Archaics, and we'll see if that one's playable.
Whoa! I'm not done with Maelstrom Muse. You ready?
Okay.
This is the flavor.
Right, you're really gonna drag me, huh?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
because the flavor text is like S tier.
Okay.
She's an inspiration to everyone, even herself. That sounds like it could be my line.
It does, doesn't it?
It really does. I love it. I
You
love
know
it
what,
so
man?
much.
You always have an audience of one. All right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what the flavor text should really be.
Burn.
All right. So how about teachings of the archaics then?
This is a 2 and a blue sorcery lesson. So keep in mind, you in best of 1 can get this from your sideboard for free, and in best of 3 it costs you a sideboard spot, but you have the same idea when you play a learn card. And the text is, if an opponent has more cards in hand than you, draw 2 cards. Draw 3 cards instead if an opponent has at least 4 more cards in hand than you.
Okay. So this is a bad divination, which has the potential to be better than a divination.
Which has the potential to be a, oh my god, a desperation concentrate. I think most people will read something like this and they'll say that, well, if it's behind, that's the only way that you get paid. But that's not usually the case. In standard right now, like, it used to be the person with the most cards in hand mattered. And I remember being at paper events, you'd always be like, how many cards do you have in hand? Because that made a big difference on what your play was, because that established where you are in the game. Nowadays, like, one, I'm not at the game store, so I don't have this question to ask, but a lot of times that's not what I'm focused on. Nowadays in standard, it's who's played the most cards, who's ahead. And this card kind of says you're ahead and you get further ahead, really. If you can do it in an aggressive way. If you're not playing any kind of aggression, then this is just kind of a bad card that will often do nothing. Like if you're playing a card that draws a card and learns, and you go fetch this, it's like you're never going to play it. It does nothing if you're at parity. Yeah. But if you played like 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, and then you play this, like that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Point. Yeah, it rewards you for dumping your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, this could be good in like the Sprite Dragon deck, right?
Sure. Yeah.
You know, like you play some cheap threats, you play some cheap spells, you do a bunch of, cantripping and damage and stuff, and then you recharge. I don't know. It's a possible shell for it.
And it's important to just always keep in mind, like, for like best of 1, it is a lesson. It's situational, but it's supposed to be. You just only fetch it when you were like on the play and you dropped a few cards. Think about Robber of the Rich when it pops off, right? When you're on the play, it's like the second card you play and they don't do anything for a few turns, so you draw like 2 or 3 cards and you get to play their deck on them, right? So that's like that's the kind of curve where this is like a way that it just buries your opponent when they're just trying to get in the game, and then you just gas up again.
Yeah, it's not a bad card. I agree. Very situational. Could be good. I would definitely be in the right deck willing to try one of these in the board, see if it gets there. Yeah, right on. Okay. Next card, which is interesting. Who knows whether this will see play in standard, but it's definitely going to see play in some other formats. Clever Lumimancer. This is 1 white mana for a creature, human, wizard, 0/1. So it's going to have to do something cool. It has Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, Clever Lumimancer gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So this card can definitely be a bruiser.
It's an 0/1. So if you put this in your deck, it's because you want to attack. And that means that you have to expect to play a spell, an instant or sorcery spell, every turn while this thing's in play. That's a lot of spells, and you want to be attacking. That's a difficult balance to walk in standard. And when I think of it, I'm like, gosh, I want to play it with Sprite Dragon, but it's really hard to have first turn white, second turn it? Like, that's probably unrealistic.
Yeah.
So yeah, standard it looks ugly. Then I think about like the mana and stuff in historic, and I think about historic with opt and faithless looting and abundant harvest. I think that card is called, and then I'm like,
Like
oh,
feather, right? We already have feather decks in historic. This is possibly goes into that deck.
Dreadhorde Arcanist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Bam. Thought.
Yeah.
Can you imagine turn one like clever Luminancer, turn two like Arcanist, turn three like any spell?
Defiant strike, you know? Like
Or hey, don't even play the Arcanist on two. Turn two, you thought seize them, or you know something, and then
Thoughtseize is sick.
turn three, you play the Arcanist and you claim it to give it haste, and
There you go.
that's so
Dude,
much.
it's yeah, yeah. And I mean, you know, casting any combat trick on your Lumimancer is definitely just gonna create piles of damage. So I could see it. I could definitely see this card showing up somewhere and being a total bruiser. And I think you will, like at some point on the ladder, your opponent's gonna go clever Lumimancer turn one, and they're just gonna bury you. So even in standard, it's gonna happen.
Hmm. I'm not sure what spells you're pairing with this. Like, what color combination would that be?
Yeah,
Boros?
I'm thinking like yeah, Boros, or maybe Azorius. I don't know.
Because when I look at this card for standard, I think of how a Koam Hellhound just did nothing because
Yeah,
the fail state was too brutal for the aggro decks.
yeah. Although, I mean, I don't know. I think Hellhound is just a bad card, whereas I think Clever Lumimancer is a situational card.
You like
So
casting spells, you don't like playing lands. Is that what this is?
we shall see. We shall see. I agree though. It's going to be hard to make it work in standard, but this will be a bruiser in some larger formats for sure. Okie dokie. This is an interesting card that I want for you to talk about, Kavako Blue. Baleful Mastery.
3 and a black for an instant. It is a rare one. And you may pay 1 and a black rather than pay this spell's mana cost. Okay, I will.
Pretty nice.
If 1 and a black was paid, an opponent draws a card, exile target creature or planeswalker. So, for 4 mana, you can have a Vraska's Contempt with no life gain, or you can pay 2 mana, the opponent draws a card, and you get a Vraska's Contempt for half the price. And you wanted me to talk about this. I hate it because I don't think I'm ever playing it for 2, and if I do, it's a lose more. I really don't like this card.
I'm kind of with you on it. Yeah, at first I was like, man, the flexibility is really good. But then like honestly, I would rather just play a Heartless Act, you know?
Yeah,
Like
it demands that exile be relevant. Or planeswalkers. Like, planeswalkers aren't very relevant right now, and exile is.
yeah.
But man, do I feel like if I'm exiling the seasoned Hollowblade with the Maul the Skyclaves on it, maybe that's worth it. But I'm not pumped about it. You know, I'd almost rather play the Heartless Act, tap the Hollowblade, make them discard a card, and find another way.
So tempo has to matter with this card, right?
Oh yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like if you I just feel like you probably can't put this in a control deck unless there are like certain threats that you're super cold to, right? So yeah, like so that in my mind puts this into like I don't know, like maybe this is the kind of card that like Mardu Knights would have played in a previous format or something, like a deck which is just trying to bury you in damage and speed and raw power.
Yeah, think of how often you see dire tactics in standard, right? That's a 2 mana exile target creature with a potential drawback if you don't control a human. You don't see it very much. The Orzhov color combination hasn't been supported. Now, this set is supposed to support it, but wouldn't you rather play tactics most of the time? You would rather play tactics until planeswalkers matter, and they don't.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we'd have to see more planeswalkers in standard for sure to see this card show up, I think. It is okay, so it is a powerful card and it is a useful card, and I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in the standard or historic meta this saw a little bit of sideboard play. But I think it's a card for which, like, okay, so here's one of the problems with this card. there's a better solution at every turn, right?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
the whole point of this card is versatile, but like the drawback is so great that you're probably not going to run it for the general versatility. So that all adds up to make a card that's very difficult to make an argument for playing. Yeah. You know what? I put this in the same category as Assassin's Trophy, right? Like that's a card which sees very, very little play in like it saw little play in standard, sees very little play in historic for the same reason, right? It's very versatile, but it just gives your opponent a little bit more advantage than you want them to have. Yeah.
Agree.
Okay. I'm just gonna skip Hall of Oracles. Actually, no, it's a rare. I guess we have to read it.
You got your principles. All cycles, all rares. All right.
All right. Hall of Oracles, rare land, tap to add generic mana. You can also pay 1 and tap it to add 1 mana of any color. And you can also tap it to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, activate only as a sorcery and only if you cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn. This card isn't flagrantly unplayable, but yeah.
This card is completely unplayable.
Okay. All right. Let's move on then. CGB just slams the hammer.
Colors matter, dude. Getting the right colors at the right spot on the curve matters.
Yep. Why don't you read Verdant Mastery?
5 and a green for a sorcery. You may pay 3 and a green rather than pay this spell's mana cost. I think we've got a cycle where you can pay less, but it'll suck. Choices. Anyway, search your library for up to 4 basic land cards and reveal them. Put one of them onto the battlefield tapped under an opponent's control if the 3 and a green was paid. Put 2 of them onto the battlefield tapped under your control and the rest into your hand. Then shuffle. Okay, so if you pay 6, you search for 4 and you put 2 on the battlefield and 2 into your hand. And if you pay 4, you put 1 on the opponent's side, 2 on your side, and 1 into your hand. Do I got that right?
Yes.
What's this card? What's going on?
All right, so here's the deal with this card. I think you're really supposed to play this for 4. And you're supposed to just swallow the drawback of ramping your opponent as well.
Dude. You just give them Hall of Oracles.
There you go. Just
give them a trash land. Easy. Easy. Solved.
If only you could do that. That would be gas. So I think the idea, right? The idea is that you play this on turn 4. It gives you 2 extra lands on the field. And then on the following turn, you have an additional land that you can play. Because otherwise, it's just strictly worse than, like what, Migration Path? Which is like that minus the drawback and minus the card in your hand. So I don't know. I guess one of my challenges with a card like this, right, is that you're playing this in a deck which has a lot of lands in it. The whole point of a card like this is that you're playing a ramp deck, right? And so in order for this to be better than, basically any of the other cards that you would play in this spot, that like getting the extra land in the hand has to matter, right? And I just don't see it. Like you play so many lands anyway. You're kind of likely to have an extra land. If you cast a Cultivate on a previous turn, you get an extra land. So I'm kind of not feeling this card.
If Migration Path gave you a 3rd land but ramped the opponent, would you play it? I mean, nobody plays Migration Path as it is.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, exactly. And I just like the 6 mana mode is like kind of a joke, right?
I mean, do you want to pay 6 mana for 4 basic lands?
It's like what if I'm racing to Ugin or something, but like it's just not how it's done, right? It's just not how it's done.
Nope.
Super weird card. Okay, if you could cheat this out though, that would be kind of gas, right?
How are you cheating this one out?
I don't know.
Oh, by paying 4.
If I'm cheating this out, I'd rather be cheating a better spell out. So
there you go.
That kind of answers that question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Conspiracy Theorist. 1 and a red. Creature, human, shaman, 2/2 at rare. Whenever Conspiracy Theorist attacks, you may pay 1 and discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Okay. Then the second part of it is whenever you discard 1 or more non-land cards, you may exile one of them from your graveyard. If you do, you may cast it this turn. All right. So this kind of like gives your spells madness when you attack with it. Is what's going on, except you don't get the cost reduction. It's probably just worse than Robber of the Rich.
It's a 2-mana 2/2. There's a couple of those that see play. Clarion Spirit. That's Scavenging Ooze. This card is not Scavenging Ooze. No. Robber of the Rich. That one has haste.
Yeah.
So,
and you don't have to spend mana on Robber of the Rich to get the ability.
Yeah, in a Bone Crusher world, that's the power level you have to be at. So is this card there? This card comes down and does nothing. If you attack with it, you can put mana into it to sort of turn it on, or you can have other effects that let you discard cards to sort of turn it on. There are some people who are going to be excited by this card because it leans into a style of play that they like. I read this and I'm like, that's a trap.
Yeah, I think so too. It's just like the Christmas scenario doesn't happen that often, and is it even that good when it happens? You know, it's like the whole idea of this card is what? Like, okay, here's one of the problems. You're playing this in like a red deck, and it's a 2/2 for 2. So usually in those situations, like you're trying to beat your opponent down, right? You're not trying to get card advantage and spend extra mana for the pleasure of doing so. And so that's kind of the thing. Like, just think about the scenario, okay? So what does this card let you do on turn 3? If it lives, if everything goes according to plan, and if your opponent doesn't have a good block, maybe they're tapped out, whatever, not likely to happen. So you attack with this, you pay the 1 mana, you discard a 2-drop, and you draw a card, and then you can play it this turn. So, okay, you really did it, right? You drew an extra card, you played a 2-drop. Like, you're still not even that far ahead at that point.
The great idea here is, at its best, it does a Dreadhorde Arcanist impression. I just, I'm not really feeling it.
It is much worse than Dreadhorde Arcanist, and that card didn't even see much play in Standard. So there you go. All right, how about a read for us, start from scratch?
So this is 2 and a red for a lesson. So one of the cards you can fetch from that sideboard. And it's a sorcery. Choose 1. This card deals 1 damage to any target or destroy target artifact. That's good, right? If you have learn cards in your deck, this should be in the sideboard if you have red mana at all, because you can destroy an artifact. Like that. That is a thing that not every deck has access to and can give decks trouble.
Yep, I agree. You play it for the artifact clause, and once in every like 30 to 50 games, you just get someone with the first option as well.
Oh, that's that face damage we were looking for, man.
Yep. Baby.
That's heading straight upstairs.
I expect at least once in the format to just die to that 1 damage and feel salty about it.
You know what's gonna suck is when they knock you down to 1 and then their learn card like fetches this and it's just face up revealed and they're waiting till next turn to have the mana to cast it.
Yep.
Like,
exactly.
Son of a.
It's gonna be painful, man. It's gonna be painful. All right. This card. All right, Draconic Intervention. 2 red, sorcery at rare. As an additional cost to cast the spell, exile an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. Draconic Intervention deals X damage to each non-dragon creature, where X is the exiled card's mana value. If a creature dealt damage this way would die this turn, exile it instead, and then you exile Draconic Intervention, just in case.
Yeah, just in case. What's up? Why? Why?
Because they thought this card was powerful.
They didn't want you to cast Draconic Intervention, exiling a Draconic Intervention in your graveyard. They had to shut that down. They didn't want us
to get like Storm's Wrath out of our next one. This card is weird and bad. So one of the things you want your sweeper to do is to deal with things at the earliest opportunity. And in order for this to work, you need to actually have had something in the graveyard in one of the previous turns, which is a big ask. And that card in the graveyard needs to be large enough that this card kills everything that you need it to kill. And one of the issues with that is that, okay, so Storm's Wrath is not even that good, and it deals 4 for 4, right? So in order for this card to deal 4 for 4, you need to have a 4-mana sorcery that you didn't cast in one of the previous turns in your graveyard, which means you had to pitch it or mill it. And that's not going to happen every game. So you can't even rely on this card. So I kind of don't understand what we're doing here.
Well, I think we both know that it's here for those really expensive instants and sorceries that you can pay and then make a treasure so that on turn 3 you can wrath for like 7 or 8 if you even wanted to. So, okay. I think that it's asking a lot. It's a little magical Christmas land. I think for this card to be good, there have to be some cheap dragons that you play and then you do a one-sided sweeper, but if you're going to play Goldspan Dragon, do you need this?
Exactly.
I don't see why you would. I don't know. I'm not into it either, but there is the potential to be doing a ton of damage with those treasure creating spells. And I think that's the main draw. And we've talked before on the last show, that's not my style of Magic, but it looks like they want that to be a deck really bad.
I mean, they're really pushing it, you know? I mean, yeah, I do feel like you need to be playing dragons and have those dragons be a big part of your game plan to even consider running this card.
Maybe some changeling action. Yeah.
There you go. I mean, it's true that, I'm struggling. I'm still struggling. Like, even if I curved out turns 1 through 3 playing dragons, I still just can't figure out why this card is in my deck. Anyway, this card would be gas if it was just Storm's Wrath that didn't hit dragons. That would be fine. I would give it a chance. I would play my Sprite Dragon deck. I'd play this. I'd see if it was good. Anyway, all right. Okay, we have another lesson. Why don't you read Fractal Summoning for us?
Ooh, a Simic lesson. X hybrid Simic. Sorcery lesson. Create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put X +1/+1 counters on it. Guys, it's a Hydroid Crisis. Free Hydroid Crisis. Bro! How are you not pogging?
Oh my gosh. This reads as a flagrantly unplayable card to me. Maybe random finisher in some weird control deck.
Don't forget it's a lesson, which means in a way you get it for free for doing other things that hopefully your deck was kind of into anyway. Although we're running pretty short on good learn cards as we move deeper into the set. We've only had a few that I like, and they aren't in this color combination. But if we get a good learn card and you're just kind of picking this up as the gravy on top of something you wanted to play anyway, then it's a mana sink, and late in the game can be powerful to just make a big thing, but I'm not
here's
saying
my question, right? I feel like control decks is where I would want to see a card like this, as a finisher, right? Because I just feel like decks have better options these days. We have what's the pump land that you can put a lot of mana into.
But are they better options that you get for free for doing something else?
I mean, maybe not. This might be the best creature lesson.
Yeah, probably.
That's possible.
You just it's awkward because this is not a card I would ever play in a deck, but I would play it in a lesson board if the learn cards that were in my deck should be there. If they're holding their own anyway, which
I actually happen to know that there is probably just a better lesson at Mythic, which is like a creature finisher. So we'll just have to read that when it comes. But I think that kind of invalidates this card.
Great. Cool.
Foreshadowing. Okay. Ecological Appreciation. X 2 green. Sorcery at Mythic. So this one's got to be a banger. Search your library and graveyard for up to 4 creature cards with different names that each have mana value X or less and reveal them. An opponent chooses 2 of those cards. Shuffle the chosen cards into your library and put the rest onto the battlefield. Exile Ecological Appreciation. All right, so we have like a baby Sultai ultimatum going on here.
You called for a banger. I call for garbage.
This card sucks.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you had already. Anyway, picture it for 6 mana, which is a lot to put into a sorcery in standard. And you're going to search your library for 4 3-drops of different names. Your opponent's going to choose the 2 that suck the most or that are the best, and leave you with the other 2. Like, what is your deck that you can have all these 3-drops anyway and have 4 different ones that are relevant? Because think about it, the good ones are gone. You get the 3rd and 4th worst 3-drop in your deck for this situation. How is that good? That's 6 mana for 6 mana worth of the 3rd and 4th best 3-drop in your deck. I can't see how that's something you play.
Yeah, you'd have to stretch back to older formats to have some more plausible hits on this, and even then, I don't know if it works.
Still, like, yeah, if you get into older formats and you play this for 4, and you have 4 different 1-drops that are kind of bangers, or for 5, and you have 4 different 2-drops that are really good, now you start to have some play, but, like, this is too expensive, I think.
It actually suffers from the emergent ultimatum problem, which is, and I think they've done a good job of this, is they've tried really hard to make these cards not just have a win on the spot combo on them, right? Like, there's no combination of cards on Magic Arena that currently wins you the game on the spot when you cast Emergent Ultimatum. And they're really trying to make sure that that is the case with Ecological Appreciation too. So I think that this is like, they've put a few too many like training wheels on this one. There's a few too many safety barriers on this card to ensure that it doesn't end up being that good.
Yeah, it just really medium card.
Yep, totally. It reads like a broken card at first, but then you kind of realize it's just not. Okay. Oh, this one's fun. Why don't you read Strixhaven Stadium for us, CGB? I know you love this card.
I hate you right now. Welcome to the in London. Strixhaven Stadium. 3 mana artifact. Let me get my glasses out. Jesus. This is so small, this text. Add tap for colorless. It should just stop there. But anyway. Put a point counter on Strixhaven Stadium. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, remove a point counter from Strixhaven Stadium. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to an opponent, put a point counter on Strixhaven Stadium. Then, if it has 10 or more point counters on it, remove them all, and that player loses the game.
Oh, baby. We have an alternate win con.
Is it good?
This card is super weird. Super weird. I do kind of love that it's a mana rock that can just randomly kill your opponent. So that's pretty gassed. Hey, I will probably play this in Brawl, dude. I will probably play this in Brawl.
It doesn't take much to play a mana rock in Brawl.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Every mana rock is pretty fine in Brawl. I think this is the worst one by a mile, though.
Just like you would rather play any of the others in your Brawl deck?
Yes, but yeah. I just, man, why are we, we get it, it's Harry Potter, but now we have to like have a Quidditch like game on top of it. And on top of that, it has to be like all this text attached to a 3 mana artifact that just makes colorless mana that like nobody should play this card.
I agree. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
It's all about creatures like hitting you to take the points, and you hit them to gain the, like, you don't gain points when you hit them. You gain them when you tap the stadium. But you have to hit them with 10 points on the artifact to win. So a creature does have to hit them. But every time you take damage, the points come back off. It just seems like so convoluted and obnoxious. And in paper, it would just be annoying to track. And in Arena, at least they track it for you. But I'm just picturing like triggers, like, I don't know.
So this is what I think about cards like this. In what scenario do like 10 to 12 of your creatures connect in which you're not already winning the game?
What do you mean 10 to 12 of your creatures connecting?
Okay, so let's assume, right, that you need to have a minimum. Let's say that you tap this like once or twice in a game, right? Maybe 3 times. You could tap it every turn, right? So every turn you can put a point counter on Strixhaven Stadium. Let's assume that your opponent is doing anything about it and dealing you any amount of damage on the backswing, right? So it kind of evens out. So let's assume that like in order to win with this card, you on average need to connect with like maybe like 8 to 12 creatures. Okay. That's just a rough ballpark figure. Like, how likely are you to lose a game in which you connected that many times? Like, I don't.
Right.
This is what I'm not getting about this card, right? Is that like you either have to tap it 10 times or you have to connect 10 times, or some weird combination thereof, and your opponent has to not be doing a better job of attacking you as well.
Here's what I'm thinking. You just play this in a control deck that's like 100 million% removal, and then you hit them one time with like a 2/2 Crawling Barrens with 10 counters on it, and you're done.
Yep, there you go. We did it.
I don't want to do this. I really don't. I don't. Yeah. I don't like this.
This card is just super weird and probably really bad.
And I'll probably still have to do it at some point because I'm a YouTube content creator and my life is so hard.
Oh yeah, CGB and Saffron Olive special right here. All right. Untitled Quandricks Prodigy for blue and a green. Legendary creature, human wizard at uncommon. Actually, hold on. I scammed myself into reading this card.
Yes, you did.
Let's move. For some reason, I thought this was a rare. Okay, let's move on. Manifestation Sage. So this is another one in the cycle of CCCC cards. So this one is 4 Simic mana choices. And it is a 2/2 creature, human wizard. When Manifestation Sage enters the battlefield, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal creature token. Put X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of cards in your hand.
Huh.
Okay, so I'm thinking on average, let's say you curve out, right? Like let's say you play something on 2 and 3, and then you play this on 4. I think on the play it's a 3/3, and on the draw it's a 4/4, something like that. The fractal creature token. So, like, is that good?
That's not terrible. Like,
it's not unplayable, flagrantly awful.
Yeah, the Is It for Hybrid cycle card was like terrible. The Boros one was a banger. This one's something in the middle. Mm-hmm. Usually when something depends on how many cards are in your hand, it's not very playable because you need it to be good later in the game, and you need it, you can't just rely on having it like exactly on curve. So you need cards in your hand. And I'm not seeing, like, other than learning, where, learning just puts some random fluff in your hand, I'm not seeing a lot of ways to just constantly keep your hand full at a decent rate. So, like, this card is close, though. Like, blinking this, flickering this. We have the Thassa situation where it turns on Thassa all by itself. If you want to hit your opponent with that 6/5.
That's a gassy combo, for sure.
And then Thassa blinks it and makes more creatures. It doesn't curve as well as the Heliod one with the Boros one, for sure, but it's something. In green, it's a lot tougher because green doesn't usually Wait, what am I saying? Green usually draws a ton of cards these days. But, oh man. Actually,
Yeah.
I guess with Henge, you're just going, you know?
Yeah, it's a bad combo with Henge though, right? Because it doesn't. Maybe it probably doesn't help you cast the Henge.
Yeah, probably not. But it's gives you something to gem raise onto, I suppose.
That's
Just
true.
get them.
No, oh yeah, with the fractal, yeah. So one of the issues that I have with this card is that I think on average it gets worse the later you play it. Which kind of means that like we're really leaning on playing it as soon as you can to get the most value out of it.
Yorion and Omen of the Sea can keep that hand nice and juicy for Manifestation Sage.
I suppose.
And Yorion makes another creature. It's
Okay.
so good.
Let's ask this question. Outside of the devotion, right? Let's say you don't care about the devotion, which is probably going to be most decks. Is this card just like worse than a Seeker's Chariot?
Yes.
Because that's kind of what I'm thinking.
All right, we can move on.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good. Okay. Leonin Light Scribe. 1 and a white. Creature, cat, cleric at rare, 2/2 with Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. That is quite a powerful line of text. I guess the main question is there a deck for it?
Wow. Again, in standard, I don't know. White in particular isn't the place where you're casting instant or sorcery spells hardly at all. I'm picturing it though as the curve with the O1. Like if you play the O1 that gets +2/+2 with Magecraft, and then you play this, like every spell is like +3 to that creature and +1 to this. It's so much. Yeah. Like, is there an Unleash that, like, there's been Unleash Fury combo with Goldspan Dragon? Like, like what happens if you just Unleash Fury and run amok with this card on the battlefield? It's kind of crazy.
Pretty nasty.
But it sounds kind of memey to me too. And again, it's a 2-mana 2/2. We talked about that stat line before. It's just so hard to play that stat line in standard.
Yeah, so this card can be extremely powerful. It especially like, let's say you drop it on turn 3 or 4 and then play an instant or sorcery, can just like really open things up. Imagine if you, like in a Boros deck, let's say you play this on turn 4 and remove a blocker, and you've already played some other stuff on curve, you might just be really dumpstering your opponent at that point. But it's definitely, that's the ideal scenario for a card like this, and it has a lot of fail states that aren't particularly exciting.
Yeah, like just you don't have spells. Luminarch Aspirant is just a free counter every turn. I mean, I'd just rather have that, and I don't really want like this as my 5th or 6th one, because now I have to care about how many instants and sorceries get in my deck.
Yeah, it's a very particular deck that plays a card like this, and I agree that it's the same deck you put the Lumimancer in, and either there will be a good shell for that, or there won't. But the power level is there, so that's a thing to keep an eye on.